Hi, I'm Richard Mann, Executive Assistant Chief of Emergency Operations. As professional firefighters, we have a duty and a responsibility to constantly evaluate what we've done in the past, our successes as well as our mistakes, and look for opportunities for improvement. Unfortunately, in the past 12 years, the Houston Fire Department has been hit hard with line of duty deaths. To honor each of those individuals, we've analyzed what happened, what went wrong, and what we can do better to improve. The results have been some significant improvements within our department, and we're still making improvements based on the lessons learned. But it's not enough just to evaluate our line of duty deaths. We have to take a hard look at our near misses, at those situations where we had members that almost became another statistic. We titled this program, It Happened to Me. We often think of firefighter fatality and injury statistics as being abstract numbers that happen to someone else. But you're about to hear from a few of our own members, the incidents they were on, and the near misses that they survived. I want to thank them for participating in this program. In the first part of this video, you're going to hear from Senior Captain Jerry Turner, Captain Todd Pageant, Senior Captain Eric App, and Captain Darren Unruh about the incidents they were on and the near misses that they survived. For them, it truly did happen to me, and the take-home message is that it can happen to you.
On the morning of March the 27th, about 2 a.m., District 19 was dispatched to a house fire. En route to the house fire, we did have some radio communication problems that we encountered. We were not on the original TAC channel that was assigned to the incident. So my information from the incident was a little after it had already got started. I didn't hear the on-scene report of what the first engine went on location with. What we saw when we first pulled up is smoke coming from the eaves, fire venting through a roof vent, whirlybird. I call it a whirlybird. It appeared to be an attic fire at the time. House, normal size, 1,300 square feet, slight pitch, hip roof. I went to the front door and observed the interior, which was about head, shoulder, smoke, clear below that. We decided to go ahead and cut a hole. We went to the roof, and as the firefighter that was using the saw was cutting through the material, I could see fire in his cut. I typically don't put in my regulator unless conditions dictate. It was clear on the roof, very little smoke. But looking at the guy cutting the hole, he had his regulator in, and my bottle was on. I thought, you know, it might be a good idea. We're going to get a pretty good vent from this to go ahead and clip in my regulator. In my game plan, depending on the structure, is to cut maybe an additional hole, second hole. The roof was solid. Come to find out after the fire, it was a new roof that was built over an old roof. So it was like stepping on concrete. So we moved to cut the second hole. As he's cutting the second hole, like we always do, I decided to remove that whirlybird with my maul, and I was just going to swing and knock it off. As I stepped towards the whirlybird and put my left foot down, it immediately collapsed in. Within a blink of an eye, I found myself laying on my stomach, face down in the attic that was fully involved in fire. I distinctly remember hearing the saw continue to run. A lot of things go through your mind in 20 seconds, but I was wondering whether or not they really knew I was in here. The second firefighter who was in position to pull the material from the second hole very quickly turned around and realized I wasn't standing there any longer and saw my left foot sticking out of the hole. A very courageous, heroic act on his part. Pete Ing, a firefighter at Station 19, reached in thinking that maybe I'm not so deep in the attic if I can see his foot. I was so disoriented originally, I decided I was going to roll up on my right side and try to find something to pull myself out of the hole, and when I did that, I hit his hand, and he reached in and grabbed my air bottle in my hand and rolled me up on the roof. Prior to this incident, I considered the roof team maybe a secondary part of the IDLH atmosphere and the situational awareness. Now, after this incident has happened, I have changed my philosophy a little bit in saying that we as a department need to consider the guys on the roof possibly being in the most dangerous position of the entire fire. In my situation, I thought the only two things that were going to help me was to put the fire out or for someone to do an act like Pete Ing did that night and just reach in and grab me and pull me out. Firefighters have a tendency to learn lessons the hard way. And our history will show that. We've lost people in different situations, and we've said we'd never do that again. It's unfortunate that the fire service learns the hard way, but I was lucky enough to be able to tell this story and hope that someone can take something away from this and learn to you got to watch your step and watch after each other.
We all know IDLH means immediately dangerous to life and health, and Captain Turner was certainly in that type of environment. We also got to consider that an IDLH environment always includes the roof. And anytime we enter any IDLH environment, we must have all our PPE on and fully operational. How about situational awareness? Firefighter Pete Ing certainly had good situational awareness that night. Know your surroundings, who's operating within those surroundings, and where they're at. Crew continuity is the concept of regular crew members working together on a daily basis. There's an inherent safety in regular crew members working together on a regular basis. Was that a significant factor for Captain Turner? He certainly thought so.
We were actually out drilling right before we heard the box drop. We were over at Parnell, our normal drill spot, and we had some 4-inch on the ground. We heard the box drop at MLK and Reed Road, and I knew that we were already out on the road so we could beat everybody in, so we jumped on the box and headed that way. We pulled up second. We were the second pumper on location, and there was, light smoke, a little bit of fire coming out of the AD side, AD corner. It was a residential structure, pretty typical for our neighborhood. Pretty small, looked like it'd be a cakewalk. 35s was the initial attack pumper on the fire. They had made their attack through the A alpha side, through the front door. Smoke conditions were probably waist high, so when I crouched out the door, I could see their feet at the end of the front room. They had 1 3/4 inch pulled, charge ready to go. They were making entry, and they had gotten right back to the front room. We pulled a second line off of their pumper and went up to the door. I kind of crouched down to get a layout of the house, and then we kind of went and crouched. We weren't standing, but we weren't crawling. We went and crouched. Heat conditions were not bad. It looked like it was going to be an easy deal. When we got into the actual structure, I met up with Engine 35, and I asked him if they had made a knock on the fire, if they had knocked down the fire. And he said that he had knocked down the fire, and he was going for the back rooms to do a primary search for the kids. When we were en route, the dispatcher was keying off on their people trapped, kids trapped, kids trapped. I probably said it 5 or 6 times. So everybody was pretty pumped up. They were expecting to go in there, and we had confirmed people trapped. I kind of worked my way up and talked to the captain, and I could hear fire crackling. You could hear it burning good, but we could not see it. And it sounded like it was on the wall behind us, so I asked him see if he could push around the corner and see if he could get to the fire. And he said he couldn't find it. He said he'd gone up around the corner, he couldn't find it, but he thought he had it knocked out. It just didn't seem right. You could hear the fire crackling, and that's when it started to get bad. The saw stopped. It got hot, real thick, particulate smoke, and it drove us down to the ground. And about that time is when Chief Fisher said, hey, we got to go defensive. We were a little disappointed, but we knew that in the conditions that we had, the heat conditions, the smoke conditions, it was the only option we had. We had to get to a position where we could regroup and go defensive. I kind of took that opportunity to get 35s kind of under one arm, my crew under the other, and I turned them around and said, hey, y'all take your crew, y'all move to the front door. Keep the line with you. Conditions are bad. We need to keep a line with us. And that's about the time that firefighter Manry, he was a rookie at a 35's engine, grabbed my air pack and said he was lost and didn't know where he was. And I'll tell you what, one of my mistakes was I didn't keep crew accountability. I didn't tell my guys I found someone. I was worried about who I found. And so in the time that I was talking to firefighter Manry about who are you, where are you from, my guys continued with their line out. So here we are. 2 firefighters, a rookie, 6 months in the department, 3-year captain, and we have no line in a heavy heat, thick particulate smoke. We're hosed. I know the direction that I'm going, so I'm going to continue that direction, hopefully find the wall, find my exit. I tell Manry, grab onto me, let's go. Well, we go, we run into a wall. There's 2 options. There's a doorway to my right and a doorway to my left. Well, I chose left. Well, we had just trained on what do we do if we get stuck with heavy fire on us, with no line, no other options. The most delicate part of our gear is our mask. Captain Jenkins had just pulled us in his office through learning from a Baytown fireman about what he did, and he gave us the option of covering our mask. It's the weakest link. Now, we could argue back and forth about how many degrees, how many seconds, how long exposure. Well, I'll tell you what, we go by the 10-second rule. You have 10 seconds of direct flame contact on your mask, and then you don't have a mask. Time to stand still when you've got fire all over you, but as far as I can tell, that's about what I had. It was about 10 seconds. So what I did was I covered my mask, and at the time I covered my mask, and you could see the burn patterns on my hands. I covered this way. I've now since learned that a better option is to cover in the crook of your coat, and we made a run for it, and we were covered in fire. When we broke through the Charlie side wall, my mask had just started to fail, an actual opening in my mask. The positive pressure of the regulator purged, pushed the mask that was already soft, bubbled out, and then actually popped. My gloves burnt off of me, and I had 3rd-degree burns from my fingertips to the ends of my wrists, 2nd degrees to my shoulders, and but I saved my face, I saved my lungs, and I saved my life. Well, actually, Captain Jenkins saved my life because he gave us the option to cover our masks. Knowing your equipment is probably the #1 thing that we have to do when we get to this fire station. We don't come into this fire station and go drink coffee. We don't come into this fire station, do the crossword puzzle, or read the paper. The first thing we do when we get here is check our gear, check our equipment, get it ready, because it could be a matter of moments before we're fighting for our lives or fighting for someone else's life. Knowing the limitations of your gear is just as important as to know its readiness. If I didn't have the protection over my face and my head, I wouldn't have ears today. I would have been burned more dramatically. I would have spent more time in the burn center, and I spent 10 days in the burn center at Herman Hospital from just the burns I sustained on my hands. We come here every morning assuming that it's just a regular day, but what we forget is in 5 minutes from now, I mean, in the time that I'm doing this interview right now, a box could drop, we could make a life-changing impact on someone's life, or our life could be life-changed in a matter of seconds. It could happen to you leaving this fire station. You could pull up on a fire, and it could happen to anybody. Nobody's immune from a bad day. Not in the city. There's a fire station on every corner for a reason, because the potential is there. Just because you're at 105s or in Kingwood doesn't mean that you may not make a fire or save someone's life, or in fact fight for your own life.
Previously, we heard about the importance of crew continuity, and Captain Paget reminds us of the importance of crew integrity, the concept of keeping your crew together within the hazard zone. Captain Paget also emphasizes the importance of knowing the limitations of your gear, especially your mask, which is the weakest link. Captain Paget recognized the mask was his weakest link, and he took measures to protect it. That's what saved his life.
5 years ago in March, we had a fire at 6343 North Loop where I got lost and was rescued by the Houston Fire Department. We had confirmed people trapped on the telephone on the 5th floor. 911 was talking to people on their phones, so the incident commander, Kyle Reese, knew that there were people trapped. He was working a rescue on the south side of the building, and the only information we really had was that there were still people trapped on the 5th floor. We went in. As soon as you hit the door, the back door, there was smoke to the floor. Chief Breyer was laying on the ground giving orders, trying to give orders. He told us just to follow. I guess 27s had pulled the line in and follow the line to the stairwell and then meet up with 19s and continue the search because we had people on the 5th floor. We opened the door on the 4th floor to see what the 5th floor was going to look like when we got there. And it was pitch black. You couldn't see a thing. So went on to the 5th floor, opened the door. In the far corner, you could see a little glow. Still didn't have any idea if it was an atrium building. It didn't make any difference anyway. The only orientation you had was the guys in front of you or behind you and the wall you were touching. You couldn't see anything else. We knew that we followed the hose up, so still in the stairwell, I sent Brad and Shane back down to retrieve that hose and bring it up so we could at least get it ready for the next cruise. They went down, and when they went down, I was still at the doorway. We had wedged an axe under a door, and I was just going to search out a little area right there by the door, and then we were probably done. I don't know if the ceiling collapsed there or if just on my way back, there was 2 doorknobs side by side. There was a doorknob here to the stairwell and a doorknob here went into an office. Well, I hit the office doorknob, went in. As soon as I went in, I hit a chair. Well, I knew that wasn't a stairwell, so I turned around. When I turned around, and that door was locked and I was stuck. My vibrator alert was going off and I was running out of air. Brad and Shane came back upstairs after I called for, I told them I had a victim and I needed some help. So they were coming back upstairs. They got to the stairwell door thinking that I was there. The door was closed. I guess I kicked the axe out of the way, and I wasn't there.
North Loop Command, all companies stand by. We have a Mayday call. Mayday.
If you get a little bit lost in zero visibility, you're lost. There's no such thing as a little bit lost. So I was asking for a mayday, covered up in radio traffic. Chief Reese had a million things going on at the same time. I didn't have any special tactic or training, and I've been asked by people all over the country because I got famous for getting lost in a big building. What did you do? Did you break a toilet and breathe out of the septic? Did you tear holes in the sheetrock? I didn't do any of that. By the time I realized I was in trouble, I didn't have enough energy to lift my head, let alone tear holes and tear. I stayed low and I crawled around. We went back in the building a few weeks after the fire, and you could see handprints, doorknob level, all through that floor area where I was. I could see ladder 19, I think, even before it was set up, back in the back of the parking lot, and I was calling for help, and I was covered up. The dispatchers heard me, and they notified Reese that I was by a window. I don't know how long I stayed there. You can't break out a window. They're not designed to be broke out on the 5th floor, and I didn't have enough energy to do it anyway. We crawled around for a little bit longer. I was still trying to find my way out, and I just got to where I couldn't even hold my head up. I mean, I was basically done. As firefighters, we need to realize that whenever you put on your air pack, you're giving yourself a life expectancy of the amount of time that's left in that air pack. I guess scuba diving would be the only thing even remotely close to what you do. And if you go in a IDLH on a 45-minute pack and that gives you 20 minutes of air, if you can't get out of there in 20 minutes, that's your life expectancy, 20 minutes. Do what you can and get out. All I did was exactly what I was taught to do in fire school. We stayed low. I understood the amount of heat that we were in. I'd already gone through the being terrified, scared, to just being, hey, this isn't really going to happen to me. And everything just went back to fire school. I didn't do anything special. I couldn't break out the windows. I couldn't do the things that RIT training taught you to do. By the time you're in that position, you don't have the energy to do that. as far as calling a mayday, I'd rather be called mommy by my friends than being called, Eric used to be a good fireman before he got killed for waiting on his pride. I never thought that I wouldn't get out of there. And I think that's because we just always get out of there. Just sitting and waiting for somebody, that's not in me. I don't think that's in any fireman. I think that we're driven to continue to not, once we quit trying to help them other people and reverted back to, I need to do something for me. There was never any time that I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. Then I'm going to give up trying to get out of here. At some point, I didn't have enough energy, and I was on all fours, and I thought that, I knew the guys were coming. I knew Houston firemen were coming. It's just a matter of how long it was going to take them to get there. So I tried to make myself as big a target as I could, and when I see the videos and I see me coming out of the window, there's not an ounce of Eric in any of that. There's no way I would stand up in a 5th floor window and jump out onto a ladder. That's not me. There was a lot of people that were instrumental in putting all that together on that B side of the building to start smashing out windows. I had never heard of doing that before. I'm sure that, looking back at it now, it's not really that big a deal. Why we weren't doing it before, and I know that there's been incidences where they've done it since. But I'm glad that somebody did it, because there's no way that if they'd have found me on the 5th floor where I was and took me back into that stairwell, I'd have never made it. Everything had to work in order for this to come out the way it did. And it makes me sick that we weren't able to get those people out. I just want to thank everybody, because whatever everybody did worked.
Cat Map reminds us that our life expectancy can be measured by the contents of the bottle on our back. He also emphasizes the importance of the basics. So what are the basics? Simple interior firefighting concepts like getting low and staying low. Concepts like following the wall, basic search patterns, following hose lines, hose line advancement. These are basic concepts of interior firefighting. Have you practiced the basics? More importantly, have you mastered the basics? Because when everything goes bad, you're going to revert back to the basics. Cat Map's proficient in the basics, and he's alive because he went back to the basics.
My incident occurred November 3rd, 2008. I suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns to my face, neck, shoulders, a little bit of my back, arms, left and right arm. They said I was found in cardiac arrest over off of Linder and Tucson, or Tuscan, however you want to pronounce it. About 7 o'clock in the evening, made a house fire. I was told that when we got there, we had fire showing from one window. So basically a one-room and content fire. Probably the front porch was on fire too, went from the unburned side. Went in there, I was told we went through the little vestibule, kitchen, living area, and got to this hallway, and something in the hallway happened. My regulator came out, and I tried to get the heck out of there after my regulator came out, and I fell victim to the smoke, and they found me and pulled me out, did CPR on me, and I woke up between 5 and 6 weeks later at the John S. Dunn burn unit in downtown. The members of my crew that day were Jason Kemp and Javier Benavides. Jason was riding first line and Javier was riding plugs. Yes, I do think it's important that my regular members were on the crew, the engine that day. Maybe not so much Jason, because he was a probationary and he's still learning the ropes. But from what I've been told from other people, Javier did not freak out. He kept a calm head. Matter of fact, he came up the line once whatever happened, and he knew that line hadn't been advanced, hadn't flowed water, hadn't moved, and he could tell that. He knew to go up that line to see what was going on. And when he went up the line, through zero visibility, he found Jason, and he asked, "Hey, where's Captain at?" And then on the way back, out, Javier found Captain Riggins trying his darndest to pull on me, and Javier helped pull me out. And if Javier wasn't on the engine that day, you know, kind of wonder if I'd be here. He told me I need to lose a little weight. I think that anybody that's been in zero visibility for any length of time, when you don't get that bump, or you know, you get that feeling of where is everybody, that's a terrible feeling. The readiness of our equipment is extremely important, because when it hits the fan, when stuff goes downhill, you need something right away. You don't have time to look for it or check it out. It's either there or it's not. And I do remember that I said this before, and it's much easier said than done, but it goes back to crew integrity, it goes back to size up, it even starts here at the station when the booper goes off. I do believe you get there faster by going a little slower. And I know it's contrary to our culture, because we want to, I mean, everybody's breaking that door down to get down out of the station. But I do believe that. I do believe you get there faster by going a little slower. You think about what you're singing, you think about what you're doing, your crew stays together better. They know what to expect. They know what they're more thoughtful. Staying low is very important. Obviously, we were taught about that thermal layering from day one, and how when you're standing, you're in the middle of that thermal layering, and when you get low, you're below it. I wonder. I sat at home for a long time thinking about, did I do something wrong at my incident? If I would have been low, would I have been burned as bad, or what would have happened? And I don't know. I don't know. But I do know that we as an organization do not get low. And getting low is a big deal. Matter of fact, the fires that I've made out here so far, I've crawled into a number of them, and it's funny how you can see stuff. There it is. It's just you can see better. Don't get the heat on you. Once you get that heat off you, you can't get it off you. Once you get that heat on you, you can't get it off you. Did I think it could happen to me? No, of course not. I never in a million years did I think that what Jill and I have been through now almost 4 years ago would have happened to us. And it has been, still is, life-changing. So I guess what we're trying to get at here is, should we slow down? Yes. Should we be meticulous with our equipment check-off? Of course. Should you stay together as a crew? Yes. Being thoughtful, vigilant. What was the other word you used?
Deliberate in our actions.
Deliberate. Yeah, being deliberate in our actions. Thinking about why we're training. And even thinking about stuff. When on my way to work, I'm sometimes looking at stuff and saying, okay, if that was on fire, what would I be doing? What would you do? It can happen to you, and y'all don't want to go through this. It's going to sound cliche-ish, but it's hell being burned. It hurts. And it sounds cheesy. I don't want anybody else to have to go through this crap, I believe that we do this job because of the pride. Because, the surrounding fire departments and even in the nation, they look at the Houston Fire Department a little differently than other departments. We're the guys, even Brunacini said, if you're in a house, you want the Houston Fire Department coming after you. I mean, if that's not pride, I don't know what is. That's why a lot of guys and girls, a lot of us do this job.
Think about the last time your crew had a RIT assignment. In any of the situations that we've heard, would you have been ready to respond? When you've been given the RIT assignment, you have the most important job on the fire ground, the rescue of fellow firefighters. We hear a couple reoccurring themes from Cap Munro: crew accountability, crew integrity, and crew continuity. Cap Munro makes a very good point when he says, slow down to speed up. By slowing down, we can make really good decisions early in the incident, and it's much easier to reinforce a good decision made early than to fix a bad decision that's wasted precious resources. The absolute key to successful fireground operations is a good size up to evaluate the critical fireground factors and good risk-based decision making based on those factors.